Dear UACC members and friends, I came to you about 2.5 months ago with some information as this whole situation was beginning to evolve, and I gave you a nice update then, and now I want to come back and talk to you again. I want to let you know, first of all, that the church leadership and the staff here have been meeting for the last days and weeks to try to talk about all the issues related to what's happening and to how we can begin to bring the church back online. There's two things I wanted to mention to you in particular. The first thing is this, that this group of people who's working on this, your church leadership, they love the Lord. And they are very concerned and prayerful about how to do this. And they are thinking very prayerfully about how to do this in a way that honors God and glorifies His name. So they are very, very thoughtful and prayerful about this whole issue. The second thing I want to mention to you is that they love you. Their big concern is that they do the best for you, to protect you, to take care of your families, to look after each and every one of you, and in particular, to be careful for those who are most vulnerable among us, because they are our cherished, wonderful treasures in this church, and we want to make sure that whatever we do is in their best interest. So I want to think about a few things with you today, and first of all, I want to think about something from the Bible. I want to think about how the Bible talks about the church worshiping together. You know, we have churches now. We worship in these buildings, but in those days they didn't have that. In fact, when Jesus left this earth and ascended into heaven, He left the church worshiping in the temple and then having fellowship in separate homes around the city. As they spread the gospel again, they continued to worship in homes. It was a very long time before big churches like this were made that people could all worship together in. But think about this for a minute also. Throughout the Bible, God has allowed a number of times His church worship, the corporate worship of His people, to be disrupted by opposition. In the Old Testament, He allowed Babylon to come and completely destroy the temple and carry His people off to their homeland. And in those days, worship was disrupted. In the New Testament, opposition came and destroyed the fellowship that was in Jerusalem and scattered them around the world. Now, in all of those cases, there was always this desire to get back. There was always this desire, this longing, this heart that said, we can't wait to get back and worship, and that's wonderful. But we also understand as we read the scriptures that God had a plan in doing that every time. And that plan was to use those people in those places for the furthering of His kingdom and for the outreach of His gospel or His word, whatever it was. So that brought something to my mind, and I want you to think about this. I've been considering it carefully, that in some ways, we should consider this period of time as if God is sending each one of us on our own private short-term mission. That He has told us, you know what, you're going to go out into the world now. You're going to follow the Great Commission. You're going to go out. And each one of us should be thinking about what God wants to teach us and how God wants to use us to spread His gospel, to further His kingdom, to share His love, and to just reach out for His word in the setting where we find ourselves. So as we consider what we're doing now, let's not forget the purpose that God has for us in the meantime, as we're waiting to bring everyone back together again. Now, we have been assessing the situation. We've been coming together and trying to figure out what to do. Now, of course, we know that everybody's anxious to come back to church. We also know that state and federal governments have told us that it's okay. Go ahead, start worship again. And so maybe we're wondering why our church hasn't opened its doors. Some churches have. Some churches like ours are taking a little longer to figure it out. Well, I'd like to share with you a few of the reasons that we're maybe taking the approach that we're taking. The first reason is this. As we assess the situation and look at our congregation, we realize that we do have a very high percentage of people within the high-risk category. And again, they are our precious commodity. We want to take care of them. We want to make sure when we open the doors to this church that we can ensure their safety and be very careful for them. Second, the guidelines for reopening the church that have given to us, and I can show you here, I can even hold them up a little bit. There's guidelines that have come from the CDC and from the state. They are extensive. They are extensive guidelines that have all kinds of regulations and restrictions in them. So it will take us time to prepare. It'll take us time to collect the equipment we need, the PPE products, the masks, the gloves, the things like that we need, the cleaning products we need to disinfect and sanitize the place. We need to make sure we have enough so that if we open the doors, we don't run out at some point. We need to have enough to last us. And that's somewhere where you can help us as well, because some of these products, the disinfecting products, are not easy to get, the wipes and the sprays that will kill this germ. So if you're going to the store and you see that you're allowed to pick up a couple of bottles of this somewhere and you see that someone has it, pick up one for yourself, but also grab one for the church. And if everybody does that, we'll be able to stockpile enough so that we can be prepared when it's time to open the church. We also have a number of things we need to do. We need to train the staff and the volunteers in all those guidelines you just saw, all those restrictions and things we need to do. Third, we need to prepare the facility. Everywhere you've gone, you've probably seen there's signs, there's things on the floor to tell you where your spacing is. Well, that's something that's going to take time for us to do as well. Third, I want to talk about the impact of all of these restrictions on worship. You know, we're all very excited to come back, and somehow we think we're just going to walk in the door and everybody's going to sit around and we're going to start worshiping again like before. But if you look at these restrictions, you'll realize that this is not the case. We will not be able to do that. First of all, everyone coming in will have to wear a mask. And you'll be asked to bring your own, but if you don't bring one, we'll be providing one for you. And those masks have to stay on throughout the entire worship service. Also, households will be sitting together. Those of you who are sheltering together will stay together, but you'll have to sit 6 feet apart from any other household, any other people. And we'll be asking you to maintain that distance the entire time. It's saying that there should be no congregational singing. Now, we'll sing, the worship band will sing, the pastors will sing from the pulpit, but you will not be encouraged to sing. And there'll be no serving of refreshments and minimal socialization. So the idea that we're just going to come back together and have this wonderful, warm, fuzzy time as a church family is not exactly what's going to happen. Initially, it's going to be pretty awkward. Fourth, there's an impact on the makeup of the congregation that will be able to worship, right? A lot of the people in our congregation are in the at-risk category. They'll be asked not to be a part of worship. Also, the guidelines make it virtually impossible for us to have a Sunday school. So families with young children are not going to be able to come. So that leaves us with a very small population, a small slice of the congregation. So the idea that we as a community will gather again is not going to happen. It's just going to be a small group of people who are able to enjoy this. And finally, we want to be very careful because there are reassessments going on. Towards the end of this month, we know that the state and the CDC are going to look at what's happened with the churches that are opening already, and they're going to decide whether to make the restrictions more stringent or whether to loosen them up. We also have the situation that everything's been going on around us, and the social distancing barriers have been broken quite consistently all through the country. And we're not sure what that's going to result in either. So we deemed it prudent to wait and see what the outcome of those things are before we take things much further. So here's what we came up with. All this in mind, the church leadership has decided to move forward with a step-by-step staged process for reopening. So we are not ready to set a hard date on which we are going to open the church. We're not ready to say on this particular Sunday, this particular month, we're going to open the church right now. But we are committed to making it a target to work towards getting a good number of our ministries and programs off the ground with live interaction by mid-July. That's our goal. And we will also continue to reassess the state and federal government guidelines in order to adjust our timeline appropriately. The first thing that you're going to see coming back is the church office. Our staff, starting this week, is going to begin putting in 2 office days a week. We're going to come into the office, each of us, 2 days a week. Doing that, we are going to cover all of the days that the office is normally open: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 9 to 5. There'll be someone here to take your calls. Now, I must say, though, that the church will not be open right away to visitors. So don't just drop in. Don't just think you can come by and knock on the door and come into the church. If you have some important reason to visit the church, give us a call, make an appointment, and we will make sure the proper guidelines are in place for you to make that visit safely. Second, all the church groups, ministries, committees, boards, and organizations are being asked to consider in what ways they can begin their activities and begin to reinitiate live ministries, meetings, activities, whatever it is. They will think about it. They will let us know what their plans are. We will do everything from our side to make that possible. And hopefully over the coming weeks and months, we'll be able to open many of our ministries that way. Now, some of our groups have already met and talked about this, and some of them have decided not to have their ministries live until 2021. They're going to continue doing it virtually throughout the fall. But some will be ready to open, and we will let you know what they are. And finally, we will continue to put all the pieces in place for the reopening on Sunday morning worship. We will do everything we can so that the moment we feel we are ready to do it, we'll be able to jump right into it. You will receive updates and instructions along the way about what will be expected from all of you, because we will be expecting your cooperation and your help with all of this, and what we will be doing in order to make this possible. So as things become more clear, then we will announce a target date for our first live worship service. And hopefully we'll be able to do it in a way that will be a blessing to everyone. So I just want to close by thanking you all for your prayers, for your cooperation, for your patience, for your love for each other, for your heart for the Lord, and for your desire to be together in worship throughout this entire ordeal. And I promise you that we will do our best to restart the worship service as soon as we feel we can do so, in a way that is safe and protects our precious church members and honors our gracious and glorious God. Thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday mornings through YouTube for the time being, and I'll pray for the day that we can all be together again here in the church sanctuary. God bless you.